Cole Ryder, age 23, death by multiple lacerations to the chest, reaching as deep as his lungs. Poor bastard. Looks like someone cut him open multiple times with a sword. No visible signs of struggle, indicating that he was either drugged beforehand or was hit unexpected. The coroner recorded, working together with the police officers to try to piece together the final moments of Cole's moderately short life. Cole's lifeless, blood-drained corpse lay flat on the autopsy table with the ribbons of flesh hanging loosely, even before the coroner began his work. He was approximately 5 feet 11 inches tall, short brown hair, average build, with no tattoos or piercings. The average kind of guy you could walk past every day on the street and never take a second to glance at. To society, he was just like everyone else, an invisible person with an unimportant life. How can people do this to each other? The coroner questioned aloud while removing Cole's ribcage. As he was about to make an incision to remove the lungs for a closer examination, something caught his eye. He placed a hand just under Cole's shredded left lung and produced a bloody, airtight plastic bag. Removing the bag and emptying its contents onto a nearby sterilized desk, produced a USB stick, simply labeled, "Play Me." Breaking from the procedure, the coroner ran out of the room to the two officers working on the case, handing them this strange new piece of evidence. "Continue the autopsy. We'll find out what this is about," instructed one of the officers. They turned to leave, rushing to the nearby police station to check the contents of the USB. "We'll be back shortly." The coroner re-sterilized and once again entered the room to continue working on Cole's corpse. Picking up the scalpel, he continued where he had left off, about to remove the lungs. At the police station, the two officers loaded up the USB and checked the files. There was one single audio file entitled "Current Number." Opening the file, they could hear a voice, though it sounded slightly different than a human voice. It sounded more raspy and cruel, almost animalistic, though still in English.
11,842.
The voice kept repeating as if it was trying to memorize the number.
11,842.
"What the hell is this?" asked the first officer. The second simply shrugged, and they closed the file down. Strangely, however, there was now a second audio file on the USB titled "Update."
By the time you return, the number will be 11,843.
It was the same inhuman voice scratching through the speakers. "Have you ever seen anything like this before?" the second officer asked the first. The first shook his head violently, and a chill air pressed through the room. "I think perhaps we should return to the coroner's office," suggested the second. Upon re-entering the coroner's office, the metallic, sickly smell of blood wafted through the air, and a strange laugh could be heard through the autopsy room. Drawing their handguns from their holsters, the two men kicked open the autopsy room doors to a scene straight out of anyone's worst nightmare. There was more blood than paint on the walls, and the coroner was completely missing, except for the pair of eyes slowly rolling across the floor. Cole Ryder still lay motionless on the autopsy table, chest cavity still open, and face still lifeless, though he was now caked in the coroner's blood. Walking slowly around the room, The two officers stopped at either side of Cole's body, surveying everything and drawing their weapons, ready to unload upon the next thing that moved. Some sick guy had obviously done this, and the officers did not want to be the next two victims. A spine-chilling, animalistic laugh filled the room, reverberating off all the walls, making it impossible to tell where the sound came from originally.
More fresh meat,
The voice exclaimed, and both men were impaled by large sword-like claws. Cole sat up, withdrawing his bladed hands from the officers' chests, then using his razor flanges with the utmost precision, neatly cut out the sets of eyes from the now lifeless men. Changing the scalpel-like protrusions from his fingers to blades like large hacksaws, he then tore at the bodies, ripping them to pieces and splattering even more crimson stains all over the walls. Picking up the pieces of flesh that were now scattered around the room, he started placing them into his own chest cavity and lungs, which, while still exposed and cut open, seemed to take on a life of their own. Thrashing around like wild animals, they consumed the raw human meat. Once he was done completely consuming the bodies, he retrieved his ribcage and pushed his chest back together with a sickening crunch of bone-on-bone sound. He deleted the recording of the autopsy from the audio recorder. He had picked it up and casually walked out into the world, speaking over and over into the recorder. 11,845.